people! March has been and gone, but only just, so this is why I'm doing this video now. But March, if you are unaware, is Women's History Month, and one thing I love is history, another thing I love is badass women, and a third thing I love is Disney. So let's combine those three and do the badass women of Disney history. Basically, top like 5 of some of the most awesome Disney legends ever who happen to be women. Let's get this show on the road. So the first person is Harriet Burns. She was the first ever woman hired by Walt Disney Imagineering in a creative role. Harriet helped design, prototype and build theme park attractions for Disneyland, for Walt Disney World and for the New York's World Fair in 1964/65. The company she worked for before Disney went out of business, but a co-worker of hers used to work for Disney as well and kind of jumped ship back to Disney and invited Harriet along. Harriet was then hired to paint sets and props for the Mickey Mouse Club TV show. She soon began coordinating the show's TV styling, the show's colour styling, and even designed and built the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. She then later joined Walt Disney Imagineering, where she helped build Sleeping Beauty's castle, New Orleans Square, the Haunted Mansion, and many, many more. She also helped construct Storybook Land, which features mini villages based upon Disney films, Disney animated movies, sorry. And she designed all of the singing birds in the Tiki 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 room, in the Tiki 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 Tiki, which were the first audio animatronics at Disneyland. She worked on everything from figure finishing to stage design for attractions at the New York World Fair, including great moments with Mr. Lincoln, which then became the Hall of Presidents, and the Carousel of Progress, which is still at Walt Disney World today. The next on the list is Mary Blair. She helped introduce modern art to Walt Disney and his studio. And for over 30 years, Walt showed off her work for his films and the theme parks alike. In 1940, she joined the Disney studio and worked on a number of projects. In 1941, she joined the Disney expedition that toured South America for 3 months. Her watercolours captured the spirit of the Latin country, that she was then named the supervisor on the Three Caballeros and Saludos Amigos. Mary's unique colour and styling influenced post-war Disney films like Song of the South, which I know is a bit controversial, Make Mine Music, my personal favourite, so dear to my heart, Cinderella, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, like just to name a few. Walt asked Mary to assist in designing It's a Small World for the New York State Fair, not World's Fair, for the New York World Fair. As a result, that attraction is purely Mary Blair in style and concept. The next is Alice Davis. She is the wife of fellow Disney legend Marc Davis, also one of the 9 old men. She was the original designing woman, designing and dressing animated figures for attractions like It's a Small World and Pirates. One day she received a phone call from her former art instructor and future husband, Marc Davis, who needed a costume design and created for a live action reference model that would then later be the inspiration for Briar Rose in Sleeping Beauty. In 1963, Walt recruited Alice to contribute to It's a Small World for the 1964-65 New York's World Fair with the wonderful Mary Blair. Alice researched, designed and supervised the creation of over 150 costumes for the audio animatronics on the attraction. During this time, Alice also created costuming procedures, set up a manufacturing base, and developed quality control refurbishing techniques for the 3-dimensional characters in rides and shows created by Walt Disney Imagineering. In 1965, she translated the pirate's attire from Marc's drawings into clothing designs and patterns for all, not just some, all of the costumes on Pirates. Alice has continued to consult for the company and was honoured with a window on Main Street, USA in Disneyland next to her husband's in 2012. The next is Grace Bailey. Disney produced its first Technicolor animated short, Flower and Tree. The former head of the ink and paint department, Grace Bailey, was charged with expanding the studio's inventory of colours. Having mixed and matched basic colours, so like basic blacks, greys, whites, suddenly Grace was mixing many colours, which would bring Disney's animation to vivid. In 1932, she applied for a job at the Disney studio and got a position in the ink and paint department. Before computers, inking and painting was a laborious process. You had inkers who traced animators' drawings onto cells and painters who coloured in the drawings by hand. So think of a feature-length animated film, how many drawings are in it? The people of the ink and paint department need all the awards. And like back then, because it was such a laborious task, even Walt and Roy helped with the ink and paint process. Grace worked her way up through the department, where she ended up training new artists to ink the animators' drawings. In 1954, Grace was selected the head of the entire department of ink and paint, which she held up until her retirement in 1972. The next person is Ruthie Thompson. Ruthie's technical mind led her to be supervisor of the scene planning department at the Disney studios. She helped establish the camera mechanics used to photograph animated scenes and backgrounds onto film. Ruthie's association with Disney, though, started way before she was even an employee of the company. She was a child growing up in Hollywood in the 1920s, and she lived a very short distance from the Disney Brothers studio. She used to walk by the storefront, and eventually curiosity took hold of her and she had to snoop around. And one day, like eventually, Walt and Roy allowed her into the studio, and she used to sit there and watch Roy shoot the animated cells onto film. What a cool childhood. Walt offered her a job after she went to college and everything as a painter in the ink and paint department, where she helped put the finishing touches on the very first animated feature, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. She was soon promoted to final checker, reviewing animated cells before they got photographed onto film. By 1948, Ruthie once again got transferred to animation checking and scene planning. After dedicating nearly 40 years to the Walt Disney Company and working on virtually every single Disney animated feature right the way through to The Rescuers, she retired in 1975 and celebrated her 100th birthday in 2010. And yeah, so as part of Women's History Month, I know this is in April, but I assure you it was filmed in March, so it's still Women's History Month. Let's remember the women of the Walt Disney Company who we may not have had the animated features that we do if it was not for them, and we may not have had some of the attractions if it was not for them either. But yes, thank you very much for watching. Who are some of your favourite Disney legends, women or not? I'm really interested to know. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye!